The civil war in Sudan is something that's referred to as the forgotten war. And there's reason for that. It's mainly because the mainstream media, especially the Western media, has chosen to not focus on this war, to not cover this war in depth. And when they do, it's like a side note. Oh, by the way, this and this is going on in Sudan. Moving on to the next story. That's basically how they cover it. And it's sad that's the case, but at the same time, it kind of makes sense to them because covering this Sudan war doesn't get them clicks. It doesn't get them the eyes that they want on their platform because that's how they make money through the ads and everything that they run on their websites and stuff like that. But since the Sudan war doesn't get them any of that, they don't bother to cover it. And that puts us, people that live in the Western world, to be unaware of what's going on there unless you voluntarily choose to look into these type of things, unless you voluntarily choose to be someone that pay attention to what's going on outside of their own environment. I mean, almost everybody that you know has heard of the Ukraine war. And by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we've also heard about the war in Palestine. There's so many wars happening that covering what's going on in Sudan is definitely not a priority for mainstream media. But slowly but surely, that is changing because you might think that what's going on in Sudan is something that the Western world isn't involved, or it's just happening in Sudan and it's only between them. But in reality, there are so many other countries involved in making this war continue as long as it did that many of us don't even know about. And I can't really blame you, some of you, if this is the first time you're like, wait, what? What do you mean Sudan war? What's happening in Sudan? Where is Sudan? Well, that is what we're going to be talking about in this video. But first, for those of us who are unaware of what's going on in Sudan, or for those of us that have heard about it, but just don't know enough about it, let's first refresh our memory. Okay?
In Sudan have been struggling to set up a democracy after decades under one-man rule. Omar al-Bashir came to power in a military coup in the late 1980s, became president, and stayed for 30 years, until people rose up and demanded that he step down. Then the army took over, and people didn't want them in charge either. So after pressure from protesters, the army agreed to share power with different political groups in a transitional government. The idea was that it would oversee a transition to a democratic system. But 2 years later, the army kicked out the prime minister and seized power again.
The people in Sudan seem to be trapped in this limbo, and they're going round and round in a circle that involves the same people, with no clear path or trajectory on how they can actually start to plan for a transition.
There have been ongoing talks to make that transition happen between the military and political groups representing that pro-democracy movement. But a major reason the process is being held up is because of an underlying rivalry between the army and the rapid support forces that have become like a second army. And many people see this as a personal rivalry between the army's leader, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, who's effectively the leader of the country, and the leader of the RSF, General Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, widely known as Hemeti. The thing is, for years, both men were on the same side and had been since the war in Darfur. Hemeti led a militia at the time widely known as the Janjaweed, and they were used by al-Bashir's army to fight rebels in the region of Darfur.
They were created to protect the upper echelon of the military and the senior commanders.
They're accused of carrying out war crimes there, and al-Bashir actually got charged with committing genocide. In 2013, the militia were rebranded as the Rapid Support Forces and worked with the army on different missions. Then, in 2019, Hemeti and General al-Burhan joined up to get rid of al-Bashir. And during the big pro-democracy protests, the RSF and the army were accused of killing more than 100 people. But since then, the RSF has been acting a lot more independently, and they've grown more powerful.
They were able to establish vast investments around the country and outside the country, especially in the gold trade.
These two main actors, the army and the rapid support forces, were able to collude, now successfully for about 4 years to stay in power themselves, but there's always that core tension about who was the top dog between them.
So that brings us to the fighting right now. As part of Sudan's transition to democracy, there have been talks about integrating the RSF into the army, but they can't agree.
Note that this video is from 2 years ago, and things have just gotten worse
over the timeline. The army
empower themselves, but there's always that core tension about who was the top dog between them.
So that brings us to the fighting right now. As part of Sudan's transition to democracy, there have been talks about integrating the RSF into the army, but they can't agree over the timeline. The army proposed 2 years, while the RSF wanted it to be 10.
The army, had been making a stand. They realized that the rapid support forces have been growing. The head, General Hemeti, has political ambitions himself, and I think there was a sense that if they did not somehow force the rapid support forces to agree to integrate and to go under them, that this force would keep growing and grow out of the control of the formal military.
It's unclear who started the fighting, but on April 15th, both sides started trading accusations that they had attacked each other's bases in Khartoum. Then, they fought to take control of the presidential palace, the airport, and the state TV channel. The army has air power, and they've been hitting RSF bases in the capital, many of them in residential areas. The RSF don't have planes, but they do have anti-aircraft weapons, and they have about 100,000 men. There have been plenty of calls for the fighting to stop, from Sudan's neighbors, the African Union, the UN, the EU, the US, and the UK. And there could be some leverage from countries like Egypt, which has been a close ally to the Sudanese army, and on the other side, the UAE, which has ties to the RSF. But there's no sign that either side wants to back down.
Right now, for a lot of people, it's a period of confusion. It's a period of uncertainty about what's going to happen in the next few minutes, the next few hours, the next few days. And it's a period of war, and they have nowhere to turn to.
A lot of people in Sudan are scared, heartbroken, and frustrated. Their country keeps getting derailed off that path towards democracy. It's a hope that seems even more distant now.
Like I said, this video is from 2 years ago, and things have just gotten a lot worse. And one must wonder, how are these two armies able to continue fighting for this long? Where are they finding this money to fund the war? Because it can't be an easy thing to run, like to go to be fighting for this long. You need weapons, you need armory. Well, armory is weapons, obviously, but you need armory. You need to be able to feed. You need to be able to feed your army. You need to be able to take care of their needs and stuff like that. So one must wonder, like, how are they able to continue this? The sad truth is there are outside influencers who have their own need, their own whatever, their own agenda, basically, in this war. It benefits them the longer this war goes. And also, not only the longer it goes, but if this war ends, they want it to end in a way that benefits them. And when I say them, I'm talking about actual countries. Some of them are they're making it very clear that they're involved. Others, they're trying to do it underneath, like without anyone really knowing who they are or why they're involved in this. But some of them, it's very obvious. And one of those countries that is getting exposed for their involvement in this war is none other than UAE. So let's look into that. Understandably, another thing to wonder is, like, what is in Sudan that these countries would want to be involved? That's another thing that we're going to be talking about. But first, let's check this out. This YouTuber does a really good job basically covering this in a comedic but yet very informative way. So let's check this out.
I'm so sorry, I'm gonna have to leave the Dubai Chocolate Labubu matcha party early tonight, guys. I gotta approve another $2 billion Sudanese weapon smuggling deal with some Chads, the country Chad. Actually, you know what? Cancel my supermodel porta potty appointment with Andrew Tate as well. I just need to focus on funding Sudan's rebel army, RSF, right now. They promised me at least 200 major civilian villages in the Darfur region will be completely wiped out tonight, so I can get my soft Emirati hands on all the gold nuggets hidden deep within the blood-soaked Sudanese dirt. And before I can even wipe this red liquid off my precious gold, best believe a starving Nepalese migrant worker who hasn't seen his passport, 5 dirham, or a single human outside of his labor camp in the last 20 years will climb barefoot for days with no safety equipment and perfectly mount my nugget of Sudanese gold right on the tippy top of the Burj Khalifa. It's not just the UAE though. Throw a few more likely culprits into the equation and you have Sudan's brutal, awful civil war, which is entirely funded by foreign taxpayers just like you. Reason 10,031 why it's completely ethical to evade tax. Wait, I'm joking. Over the last month, Sudan's situation has dramatically worsened, making it one of the bloodiest conflicts on earth. So bloody, in fact, you can see the blood from space on Google Maps satellite imagery. Worst of all, it's all completely unnecessary and pointless. Both armed groups fighting each other in Sudan are simply proxies funded by foreign companies, foreign businesses, just foreigners who are scrambling to control Sudan's natural resources. Big surprise, huh? The only human...
So you get the point. Sudan has a lot of gold, okay? And every country is trying to get their influence on that by supporting one side or the other. And as we all know, I mean, come on. I mean, you have to at least know by now Dubai and their influence over By now, you have to know what's going on with Dubai and how they're known for their gold and their lavish life of luxury, vehicles, and everything. And of course, their tall buildings, even though it's in the middle of desert, in the middle of nowhere, they've managed to do all that using very, very questionable methods and almost slave like work environment. I mean, for years, Dubai has been trying to sell this idea of luxury and lavish world. And it has worked to some degree because so many people look forward to going to Dubai for vacation and stuff like that, but don't realize that all the things that they're enjoying is being built on the blood of innocent individuals. We can do a whole video about how Dubai treats the people that work for them, the people that actually build these lavish buildings and all that stuff. But Dubai is involved in Sudan and is basically funding the war and the genocide that's going on over there because they want that Sudanese gold. So they've been selling weapons and giving money to the army to be able to continue this going on, but also collect the gold in the back. So that way they can fund their lavish world, and also continue to be known as the country of gold. Okay. And also, they have been trying to get away from the dependency on oil because, as you all know, oil changes its value. And also, a lot of countries are trying to move away from that dependency on getting the oil from places like UAE. Okay. So, in hopes of doing that, they're willing to do things that is putting so many individuals at risk, like to continue this war that is causing so many havoc. It's basically horrible to see what's going on over there. But to them, for as long as they can collect that gold, literally dirt cheap, okay, they don't care. And even if this war ends, they wanted to make sure that it ends with the group that they're supporting in power. So that way they can continue to get this gold at dirt cheap, basically. Okay. So that's their way of justifying being involved in this and funding this. And as people are starting to be more aware of what's going on and UAE's involvement in this, people are starting to call to boycott UAE. And I think we should even go a step further than that and start to do something to hurt these other countries that are involved. And it's easy for me to say, I know, but it's going to be near impossible to do that because, like you saw, the list of countries that are involved is ridiculous. Okay. And many of us who live in these countries might not even be aware of what's going on over there, let alone to think that our own government is involved in this. And not only that, but our tax money being used on this. Just similarly, with what's going on in Israel and Palestine, and how the US government is literally using tax money to fund Israel, which indirectly is being used to hurt and harm innocent Palestinians. But that money is coming from our own tax money, the money that we worked, the money that was collected from us, from our paychecks, okay, is being used to fund that. And I think it's time that people start to be aware of these type of situations and start to educate themselves. It literally takes no time for you to look into these type of things. If you don't enjoy watching, I mean, if you don't enjoy reading an article or two about this situation, watch a video. I mean, it's becoming easy to find videos that literally talk about this, but you might not find it in the mainstream media. Like you might not hear it enough about it in the radio station that you listen to on your way to work, or you might not see it a full story that's been done in depth in your local news TV station. But if you go online, you'll find tons of videos that is covering this in depth and explaining this. So I think it's time that we wake up, especially we as Muslims, okay? And what really boils my blood is the fact that it's Islamic countries that are involved in this, okay? I mean, I literally just recently talked about what's going on in Saudi Arabia and how it's changing, and it's like the Muslim countries are unrecognizable now. And it's just the sad truth that we live in right now. A lot of countries who are supposed to be known as Muslim countries are in a situation where they're okay with genocide. And I really hope this changes. And I really hope people wake up and start to educate themselves about this. This is not a video to give you the full depth of what's going on over there, but I'll link below some documentaries that do a really good job covering this. And hopefully that helps you to know, at least be aware of what's going on over there, and boycott these countries whatever way you can. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. With that being said, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Subscribe.
عليك وسلم المولى محمد. I look up to the best of the men, and I'm working on the test to the end, by following the message he sent, and try turning these lessons into action. And oh, I pray for the day that I see you in my dreams. Rahmatul lil Alameen, for all humanity.